In today's world, there are no guarantees. Less and less people are looking to and are actually able to purchase homes with high interest rates or mortgages, which is at least happening in the UK. In addition to that, student debt is something which is affecting a lot of people, regardless if the qualification has any real world or industry use at all. And on top of this, there has actually been a global study by the BBC, which said that around 42% reported burnout as a result of their experience in their role at one point or another. It's kind of not hard to see why. I mean, the amount of times we've been asked to work overtime in our jobs. However, I do feel that this type of uncertainty is almost unique to our generation. Back before the Industrial Revolution, most people were good at lots of different things. The average person would be able to grow his or her own food, whilst also being able to sell products and services that range from creating fabrics to manufacturing useful tools, all that sort of stuff. After the Big Bang, after the big boom of the Industrial Revolution, it seems that a lot of these small scale skills that people used to know weren't really that common, because most things were mass produced in factories. It just meant that your individual skill was narrowed and funneled down. The amount of skills that most people had and used on a daily basis was reduced. People were no longer working in a big range of ways. They were choosing an occupation, a path, which had little to no change. In America, during the time of the 1950s, this was touted as the golden age of capitalism. The average person was employed in a company and was given good pension benefits in a post-war economy with holiday packages. Since then, companies have become a bit savvy to the fact that shareholders need to be satisfied at the end of the day. So they'll cut costs on employees that aren't performing that well. This is something that's become quite common practice. But there is a quote from the writer Maris Kriesman which states the idea of a meritocracy is a lie, and the only thing hard work guarantees is unpaid overtime, not success. The truth of the matter is, you are not your job. You are a reflection of your needs and your desires, and that's the way I look at myself when I try to go about my day-to-day life. But the thing is that we care so much about what people think of us, and that's why people end up with titles like the head executive of the primary school cuisine unit, which is basically, let's be honest, it's just dinner lady, isn't it? there's no beat around the bush. But the thing is that we've been taught in our lives to measure a lot of success through things like money, power, and prestige. And the problem with this is that you're left wanting more with these things. You're never actually satisfied. It's like a hedonic treadmill. Like, how do you know when you actually have enough of these things? You don't. I think this is like the problem with our generation, is that we have on TikTok, Instagram millionaires that are under 30 years old. It distorts what our idea of success and a good life actually looks like, and it's an unfair metric for people to compare themselves against, in my opinion. And the thing is that when we think about a slow career path, it is understandable that we are going to probably think twice before going into that sort of area, if that makes sense. Because imagine you get stuck into a company that in a couple years' time runs out of budget and needs to downsize and cut costs, and maybe your head will be in the chopping block. In the Portfolio Life book by Christina Wallace, she goes through a couple of intuitive ways to overcome this type of uncertainty. What Christina Wallace champions is this idea of diversification, which allows us to turn our passions and our hobbies sometimes into sudden career moves. And what this does, for one, is create potential income. Two, it allows you to learn new skills. And then three, it allows you to connect to a range of communities. And the more experience we have in different areas or disciplines, it makes us more likely to adjust just in case a job or a career doesn't actually work out. It isn't all doom and gloom though. She actually talks quite hopefully about how in life you can be given options, not just in terms of an economic or financial way, but generally. According to a survey by Babson College in 2015, it was found that 41% of 25 to 34-year-olds, it was found that the biggest hurdle to them starting a business was this idea of the fear of failure. The negatives associated with failure, such as setbacks and low mood, actually can be seen as growth points, in my opinion. I think you learn a lot through failing. What is strange is that Dr. Martin E.P. Seligman, when he investigated people with PTSD and mental health disorders, he found that growth that certain individuals experience landed them in a better position than before the negative event that actually triggered it. Now, when making any type of decision, there's three types of costs. One, there's the financial costs, there's the social costs, and there's the psychological costs. Because these costs might be mutually exclusive, the impact of any stressful moment cannot be equal most of the time. I'm sure we can agree on this. Like, for example, the impact of getting into a car accident cannot be compared to the experience of seeing a parking ticket on your car windshield, for example. There are different costs associated with each event. Financial is perhaps how long it takes for you to get back to normal after a stint, or starting or trying to start a business, or taking a career break. Social is how your decision to become a professional graphic designer, for example, might disappoint or impress your parents or your friends. Psychological is kind of a bit harder to define, but it's simply the impact of a negative event on your sense of self-worth. For example, being let go from a job might seem quite depressing at first, but the story changes if this person actually quits and decides to take on a new job instead, for example. There's the two different sort of narratives right there. Most people bounce back from failure if they have options, but the most important factor is actually having options. The most interesting thing about failure is that everyone experiences it. The idea that someone can just float through life without any real scrapes and knockbacks is just unrealistic. I guess this is kind of why sales professionals tend to do so well at their jobs. It's because of, I guess it's the kind of perspective towards failure and rejection, because that's a common part of their job. They have to be able to withstand rejection repeatedly, like every no getting them closer to a yes. And what this does is reinforce their sense of mentality and I guess internal strength. I think an example that Christina mentions in the book, if I remember correctly, is that it talks about how boys are better at withstanding rejection purely because of the fact that they're so used to asking out girls and they get rejected, and whereas girls are more likely to wait for the best offer to come along before accepting anything. I guess this is what's in the book. This is not my opinion. In neuroscience, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that the times we learn and improve are usually most likely going to be in the areas of the brain that have the most strong, established synaptic connections. Be aware of your weaknesses, but your best results are going to come from your strengths, not your weaknesses. There is a saying from a poet called Maggie Smith, and she said that you will have many lives within this one. Some may end badly, but every place you've been, every person you've loved or let love you, every life you've lived adds up to who you are. And I think this is a really memorable scene from this movie. I don't know if you've seen this at all, but it's a Marvel film. Most of you have probably seen this. This is called Doctor Strange. In the climactic scene, Doctor Strange has to negotiate with his intergalactic otherworldly being called Dormammu just to save the world from destruction. Typical MCU type of stuff. Strange has access to this time stone, which allows him to reverse time upon his many deaths during this negotiation, and he manages to convince Dormammu to leave Earth alone in peace. And I think this is generally a really clever and genius way to end the film. We should be willing to be reborn, over and over again. You should be willing to restructure your life if it means that you can be happy. Maybe what this could mean is giving up that hobby of video games or habit of smoking. We should break from these identities that we have formed for ourselves, because it means we can go on other paths. You should be able to die over and over again. Don't actually die, that's way too dark. But you should be able to die over and over again just till you get it right. Now, I'm probably going to say and go out on a limb here and say that everyone's probably heard of this term that's been thrown about like a dodgy old frisbee. It was the side hustle. Maybe you're one of those people on the side that dyes people's hair, makes custom watercolored birthday cards. Whatever it is, you do you. Definitely don't stop. However, I do feel like there's a negative sentiment around hustle culture. People seem to think that a 9-to-5 job is somehow enough to sort out all of your needs and wants. And working outside of your contracted hours is seen as a bad thing. Maybe you need that time to chill out and not work so hard. Moonlighting is a tad bit different. This is where your side project or hobby is something that you really enjoy. It may not be something you choose to monetize, it might be something you monetize as well. But that becomes a choice. It's the fact that you're choosing to do something rather than feeling obligated because you've signed your name on the dotted line. What this does is create a deep sense of fulfillment and meaning about what is going on in your life. What Christina Wallace talks about in the book is that some people intentionally choose a job that is secure and has a predictable schedule so that moonlighting as a practice can be planned around it. And this is what I kind of do with YouTube, to be fair. In my current role, I do enjoy it. I really love what I do. But what I do around lunch, I tend to plan what I do for these YouTube videos in the half an hour or hour that I have spare, really. And this is a useful practice to have when you're in career transitions. When I was between jobs at one point, I was still writing on a blog just to try and keep my skills fresh for when I entered a new role. Of course, there's going to be a time when your side projects and passions do take a back seat, but that's just, I guess that's just life, isn't it? And this brings us on to the next point. Now, there needs to be some acceptance that the path that you, I guess, created for yourself when you were a teenager before university is not set in stone. Plans can change, but more importantly, you can change. And don't get frustrated if things don't work out, but look to a new set of opportunities that are going to be coming your way. Now, there are going to be periods of life where these the scales may tip and your priorities might change. Maybe you or your partner have suddenly found out that there's an unexpected pregnancy on the way just before you're about to start a new job. And this can affect your free time towards those side projects and passions quite a lot, let's be honest. But what needs to happen is maybe a bit of self-awareness. If you're feeling immensely stressed, you should probably start restructuring your life and your commitments. The saying is that it's better to bend than to break. Start by defining your metrics as well, like how much money do you need, like honestly need to feel comfortable. You can even make a pie chart that displays the areas or resources in your life that are spent or wasted if you wanted to get all corporate about it in a boardroom pitch style type of way. Now we're on to the big one. Man, this is such a big focal point about what makes, I guess, a good life is work balance. However, it's kind of bad news. Well, kind of. The consensus of research into this area is that work-life balance is not actually possible. Even if companies do boast about casual Fridays, as nice as these things are, the work demands will always supersede the life demands. Thing is, employees, let's be honest, people don't want a 50-50 split between work and life. What is actually suggested in the book is the idea of boundary setting. Like when a job infringes on your social values as a person, you've just got to kind of go, this job isn't doing what is said on the tin. You have to defend your boundaries. If you're being made to work overtime, make you come home late, missing your homework session with your daughter. But if this is a one-off, that's fine. But if it's continual, you have to defend that time mercilessly. In a poignant story in the book that Christina Wallace actually mentions is where she attended the last lecture from a late Harvard Business School professor. His name was Clayton Christensen. He argued that many of his MBA cohort don't intend to set themselves up for failure, like being sent to prison or being divorced multiple times. But this mistake happens regularly for those people. He's like, main idea is we have to manage the things that matter most to us in our life. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if you're an executive of a $1 billion a pound company, because you're still going to feel empty at the end of the day. Now, Christina mentions the value of investing in something called orthogonal relationships. I feel like I've mispronounced that word really badly. What this means is essentially only spending time in relationships that are parallel to your aspirations. Like if you're an aspiring dancer, it doesn't make sense to be spending time with people that are investment managers. But spending time with filmmakers could be seen as more useful, especially because they can help record or display your choreography as part of maybe like a portfolio. And she also mentions the idea that you should seek to expand outside of your immediate circles. Like if your friend is hosting a party that has lots of people, maybe you should just ask to join that, even if you're like an introvert like me that absolutely hates going to parties, like honestly. Because what this does is allow you to meet some new people. Some people just have this ability to connect with people from lots of different backgrounds and walks of life. You should use people like this in your life to your advantage. Building upon this is that Christina suggests that you're trying to, I guess in a way, just assemble like a board of directors, like the people that you rely upon when making big decisions. But each of these people should have a skill that is not identical to each other, that they're almost separate. Like each of these people has their own area of expertise. For example, you might have a friend, their main expertise is fitness. For someone else, it might be finance, or another one, it might be to do with filmmaking. If you've got most areas covered, that's going to set you up. Now, operation management experts have said that the top manufacturing lines for products are said to run at around 85%, not 100% utilization capacity. What this means is that by intentionally not trying to run at 100% capacity and leaving that 15% gap, it means that you've got an area of safety just in case things do ramp up a notch. Now, going back to the point about hustle culture, like working hard is definitely a wise choice. I cannot say that enough. But if your hustling comes at the expense of your health, your relationships, or your happiness, just stop. Don't do it. Like, you should plan your time to chill. Burnout and feelings of depression are common when you're pushing yourself way too hard. Non-productive idle time can actually stop you from your personal assembly line from breaking down and exploding into a big ball of fire. Anyway, that's it for this week, and it's quite a topical video. I thought I'd go over it because I think a lot of us have concerns when it comes to our jobs and also all the bits and pieces that make up our lives. If you like this, comment, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much as always. Take care. Bye bye.